All right, folks, gather around. Let's talk about something you might have heard whispered in hushed tones, something that sounds like it belongs in a spy thriller, the deep state. Now, before you picture shadowy figures in trench coats exchanging briefcases in underground bunkers, let's break this down. The deep state is a term used to describe a supposed network of powerful individuals within the government and other institutions. These figures, the theory goes, operate outside of official channels and democratic oversight. Think unelected bureaucrats, intelligence officials, and maybe even a rogue AI or two. Just kidding, mostly. But here's the thing, does it actually exist? Some folks believe the deep state is a very real and dangerous force, pulling the strings behind the scenes and manipulating events to serve its own agenda. Others dismiss it as a conspiracy theory, a convenient boogeyman for those unhappy with the way things are run. So, let's say, for the sake of argument, that this deep state does exist. What's their deal? What do they want? Well, like most things in life, it boils down to one thing: power. Those who subscribe to the deep state theory believe this shadowy network seeks to maintain its grip on influence and control, regardless of who's officially in charge. Imagine a government agency, for example, that continues to pursue its own agenda even after a new president with different priorities takes office. Or think of powerful lobbyists who use their connections to sway policy decisions in their favor, regardless of the will of the people. These examples, whether real or perceived, fuel the belief that there's a hidden hand guiding events, a force more interested in preserving its own power than serving the public good. Now, if the deep state is real, they're not exactly holding press conferences or releasing mission statements. They thrive on secrecy and operate in the shadows, making it difficult to pinpoint exactly how they exert their influence. However, proponents of the theory point to a few key tactics. One is bureaucratic maneuvering. Think about it. Government agencies are complex beasts with countless rules, regulations, and procedures. A savvy insider could easily manipulate these systems to stall initiatives they dislike or advance their own agenda. Another tactic is disinformation and propaganda. By leaking carefully selected information or planting stories in the media, the deep state could potentially shape public opinion and influence decision-making. Imagine a whisper campaign against a policy they oppose, or a strategically timed leak that discredits a political opponent. These are just a couple of examples, but they illustrate the kind of subtle, behind-the-scenes maneuvering that the deep state allegedly employs to achieve its goals. Section 4. Real or imagined, unmasking the deep state's influence. So, how do we separate fact from fiction? Is the deep state a genuine threat to democracy, or is it just a paranoid delusion? The answer, as with most things, is complicated. It's important to acknowledge that there are undoubtedly individuals and groups within any large organization who prioritize their own interests over the greater good. Power corrupts, after all, and government agencies are not immune to this. There are certainly instances of corruption, abuse of power, and unethical behavior within government, and these cases can fuel the belief in a shadowy deep state pulling the strings. However, attributing every questionable decision or event to a shadowy cabal of puppet masters is a dangerous oversimplification. Governments are complex, messy entities, and sometimes things go wrong, not because of some nefarious conspiracy, but because of incompetence, miscommunication, or just plain old bad luck. The challenge lies in discerning between genuine abuses of power and the inevitable shortcomings of any large, complex system. It's about asking critical questions, demanding transparency, and holding those in power accountable, regardless of whether they're operating in the shadows or the spotlight. Section 5. The deep state, a shadow over democracy. The concept of the deep state, regardless of whether it truly exists in the way some believe, raises important questions about accountability, transparency, and the nature of power itself. It reminds us that power, even in a democracy, can be concentrated in the hands of the few, and that those in positions of authority, whether elected or unelected, must be held accountable for their actions. So, the next time you hear someone whispering about the deep state, don't just dismiss it as a conspiracy theory. Instead, let it be a reminder to stay vigilant, to question authority, and to demand accountability from those in power. Because in a democracy, the only shadows should be the ones cast by the truth.